Rachel Zegler just keeps making things worse with the Walt Disney Company. The more that she tries to defend this movie, the more that she tries to spew her agenda onto the general public, it's only making matters worse.
Rachel Zegler's latest moves have unleashed a whirlwind of controversy so big that even Disney, one of the most powerful brands on the planet, seems to be struggling to keep its balance. Every time someone thinks the chaos is about to die down, another bombshell drops about what she said, what the studio did, or which behind-the-scenes deal is crumbling next.
Studios really need to go back to what they originally did, which was tell your stars to shut up and not say things, because no one is paying to hear your star say offensive things off the screen.
The budget for her live-action Snow White reportedly soared to around $200 million, and with the film underperforming by a huge margin, the very people who bankrolled this production are left picking their jaws up off the floor. Instead of the triumphant, modern update Disney likely hoped for, Snow White has morphed into a symbol of corporate bickering, social media flare-ups, and an all-out PR nightmare.
Well, audiences have responded in their droves. In fact, the trailer has broken records. More than 1 million people have disliked it on YouTube.
Some fans point the finger straight at Rachel's outspoken statements, while others swear that Disney's own poor strategy and in-house politics are just as much to blame. Regardless of who takes the bigger share of responsibility, one thing is crystal clear. This fiasco has left Disney reeling, and it's shining a bright light on some messy truths about what really goes down when a cherished fairy tale collides with modern agendas. Most people assume that casting Rachel Zegler as the new Snow White was a no-brainer. After all, she had garnered praise for her vocal chops and star presence, not to mention the lively personality she was supposed to bring to the screen. But as soon as she started doing interviews and sharing her vision of the film, the air in the Disney boardroom reportedly began to shift.
It's all Rachel Zegler and her behavior. And if it was just one comment, it probably would have been forgotten by now.
Early on, she made a few comments about the Prince storyline being creepy, and also implied that certain elements of the original 1937 classic felt outdated. Some fans were intrigued, excited at the possibility of a more empowered Snow White, but an equally large number were incensed, feeling like she was taking potshots at a beloved piece of cinematic history. Suddenly, online discourse turned toxic, and rumors began to swirl that Disney executives were alarmed by the negativity blowing up on social platforms. Though it's hard to pin down exactly when the tension between Rachel and Disney reached its peak, insiders say the animosity skyrocketed once the film's low box office projections started rolling in. Disney, having spent a fortune on the project, allegedly north of $200 million, likely had sky-high expectations. They wanted the star's promotional efforts to help generate a wave of enthusiasm. Instead, they got an avalanche of criticism. Everything from why remove the dwarfs to doesn't Rachel Zegler realize Snow White is supposed to be gentle, not snarky?
But it was comment after comment, and it was pissing off everybody, pissing off old Disney fans, pissing off new Disney fans, pissing off Trump supporters, pissing off all of America. And it became such a disaster that they had to shut her up, which was the smartest move they made.
Fueled by her unscripted interviews and tweets, the controversy overshadowed the glossy marketing campaigns. By the time advanced screenings revealed the movie's actual content, many fans were ready to revolt. Dismal box office figures soon followed, and talk began circulating that Disney might start searching for scapegoats. Adding fuel to the fire, Rachel herself showed no sign of backing down. Whenever she tried to clarify or defend her stance, some critics argued that she was only sinking the film's reputation deeper. She'd bring up how she wanted a bold, progressive take, claiming that was exactly what the studio had instructed her to say, but fans seemed unmoved. After all, it's one thing to champion modern sensibilities and another to poke fun at an iconic storyline that millions hold dear. The stakes rose when allegations emerged that certain Disney higher-ups were fuming over how she'd publicly labeled the original film weird or described the prince as a borderline stalker. Was she simply being honest, or was she crossing a line by bashing the very fairy tale that laid the foundation for the entire Disney empire? Before anyone could answer that question definitively, speculation flared about the Snow White producers' own family being unhappy with her remarks. Although it's not unusual for creative disagreements to exist on any film set, it's rarely this loud or messy.
Original description of Snow White's skin in the book is as white as snow.
Yeah.
Lips as red as blood, hair as black as ebony. Couldn't be clearer.
They missed the mark there. They should have costed me.
The key point here is that Disney stands for the unity of tradition and innovation. They want new spins on old classics, sure, but they also know that straying too far from the formula can backfire. This time, it appeared the perfect storm of reimagining, pushing progressive agendas, altering fundamental elements, and star outspokenness backfired in spectacular fashion. Meanwhile, rumors started emerging about an emergency meeting between Rachel, her legal team, and Disney's top brass, which only added more drama to the swirling chaos. Insiders claim that in this closed-door session, every painful detail got rehashed. Did the marketing team specifically instruct Rachel to highlight how modern the story would be? Or did she decide on her own to blast the original as outdated? Either way, some watchers say the entire fiasco set the stage for potential contract disputes. Disney historically includes moral clauses and brand protection clauses in big star agreements, meaning that if your public statements drag the brand through the mud, you could be in breach. People who followed the meltdown carefully insisted that Rachel's remarks were orchestrated by corporate higher-ups until they saw the public's reaction, panicked, and then tried to shift the blame to her. From the actress's perspective, the situation might feel like a total betrayal. She was presumably guided to talk about a strong, independent Snow White who doesn't need the prince to define her. Yet, in the aftermath of all the negative blowback, the studio pivoted swiftly and began downplaying that message. The question is, how fair is it to punish the star for doing what she was told to do? The hush-hush chatter suggests Disney is exploring ways to reduce the financial damage. The film's box office returns are so far below expectations that it's rumored to be one of the most expensive flops ever for the studio.
Disney's Snow White was essentially a box office dud. Early estimates suggested that they would take in 48 to 58 million in the first weekend. Apparently, it did 43 million in its first weekend.
Some cynics argue that the internal blame game is primarily about money. After all, a multi-$100 million write-off can cause enormous headaches with investors, shareholders, and licensing partners. Speaking of licensing, the Snow White brand is massive, spanning decades of merchandise, theme park tie-ins, and global nostalgia. By messing with key elements, the dwarfs, the classic storyline, the romance, Disney risked not only losing short-term ticket revenue, but also tarnishing a brand that has consistently sold well for generations. Fans who grew up adoring the original now wonder how the studio could disavow the sweet innocence that made the film a timeless success. The removal of certain iconic elements felt like an unnecessary jab at tradition, especially when the modern updates didn't resonate with audiences. With so many reshoots allegedly happening, it's no wonder the final cut struck many viewers as disjointed and tonally off. Rachel's part in this can't be minimized, though. She became the face and the voice of a campaign to rewrite Snow White's legacy. When the film bombed, or even before that, the frustration from fans landed squarely on her. Some corners of the internet erupted with vitriol, calling her everything from arrogant to ungrateful. Of course, hateful speech is never okay, but it's undeniable that her approach to interviews gave plenty of Disney loyalists ammunition. They perceived her as mocking the very fairy tale that launched Walt Disney's golden era back in 1937, effectively biting the hand that fed her.
Weird.
And once that narrative caught traction, it spread like wildfire. Another wild angle is the political dimension. Rachel made a high-profile political statement at exactly the worst time, blindsiding many in the studio if rumors are correct. Meanwhile, her co-star, Gal Gadot, took an opposite stance on a sensitive international issue, adding yet another layer of controversy. The chatter is that Disney wanted to remain neutral on global politics, especially while dealing with a fragile box office situation. As if creative and financial issues weren't enough, now the film's two lead stars stood on opposing sides of a heated geopolitical conflict. The result? More negative coverage, more headaches for executives, and more tension behind the scenes. Those close to the production say the entire fiasco underscores the fact that you can't just throw money, allegedly over $200 million, at a nostalgic property and expect an automatic hit. You need a cohesive creative vision and a marketing strategy that doesn't alienate your core audience. If even a fraction of the rumors about behind-the-scenes disagreements are accurate, then the film was doomed from the start. Some folks claim that half the higher-ups wanted to preserve the traditional romance, while others insisted on a radical departure to keep the story relevant. The middle ground was apparently so murky that test audiences left screenings feeling confused about whether this was truly Snow White or a completely unrelated fantasy flick wearing Snow White's name.
And it's not just the actors, it's Disney fans. Disney fans are offended by Rachel Zegler's comments, disrespecting the movie that made Disney. And this is why there is 1 million dislikes on this trailer. And it's a culmination.
Cracks within Disney became more visible as well. Allegedly, people in the marketing department were unhappy with how certain executives pushed an ultra-progressive angle, while others in the creative department felt the final result was a lukewarm compromise that satisfied no one. The worst part is how all these internal rifts played out in public once the negative reviews started rolling in. Instead of presenting a united front, various insiders leaked contradictory versions of events. Rachel, caught in the middle, sometimes looked like a scapegoat, other times like a villain. Disney, meanwhile, had to scramble to put out fires whenever new controversies erupted. At this point, many ask whether Rachel's relationship with Disney can ever be repaired. She's rumored to be under a multi-project contract, but fans wonder if the studio will sever ties or scale back future collaborations. If a star is perceived as anti-legacy, that's a big problem for a company built on venerating its classic properties. Yet, some defenders say she was only championing a modern perspective that plenty of audiences crave. The real question, did Disney gauge that demand accurately, or did they assume that everyone wants these classics wholly reinvented? The dismal box office suggests they guessed wrong, and they might hold Rachel accountable for delivering the message in a way that set the internet aflame. Industry analysts also note that this meltdown might serve as a cautionary tale for future live-action remakes. Studios have been milking nostalgic properties for years, but perhaps the market has reached a saturation point. People are tired of reboots that pivot too hard away from what made the original a masterpiece, especially if the new version doesn't stand on its own. On the other hand, some modern reimaginings do find success when they balance respect for the source material with creative updates. It's the balancing act that Snow White seemingly failed to achieve. Instead, it became a mismatched patchwork of forced wokeness and half-hearted attempts at nodding to the original magic. The result left both progressive fans and classic fans grumbling.
She's actually very good, and it's a solid 3 out of 10 on every level, every other level. You can judge the film. It is a colossal disaster.
Now, swirling rumors suggest that behind the scenes, Rachel is digging in her heels. She supposedly has her own legal counsel ready to push back against any breach of contract accusations. If the marketing team told her to emphasize how outdated the original was, she can easily argue she was following orders. If they wanted the cast to hype the film's progressive spin, then her condemnation of old tropes was hardly rogue. So Disney may find itself facing a star who is well prepared to show evidence, emails, memos, or phone calls, that she was doing exactly what they asked. That would leave the studio in an awkward spot if they try to claim she single-handedly sabotaged the production. Meanwhile, the financial ramifications keep piling up. Some analysts say that if you include promotional costs, Snow White could need well over $500 million to be considered profitable, especially for such an A-list property. With the film apparently struggling to reach even half that amount worldwide, the shortfall is enormous. This shortfall puts pressure on CEO Bob Iger, who's already been contending with questions about the direction of the company's content. The meltdown might also make future star talents wary of how they navigate public commentary. If calling the original storyline weird can land you in a legal standoff, perhaps it's safer to spout generic praise and keep your opinions to yourself. That, ironically, might stifle the very creativity studios claim to want from their stars. So, where do things go from here? Some believe Disney might attempt a hush-hush resolution, letting the film quietly drift off as they move on to other projects, hoping everyone forgets the fiasco. Others say it could escalate to the point of Rachel Zegler walking away from her deal, or even a lawsuit if the studio insists she's liable for the film's disastrous reception. The repercussions for the broader entertainment industry could be huge. If a legendary brand like Disney can't handle cultural updates without igniting a firestorm, smaller studios might think twice before attempting radical reworkings of beloved classics.
Because they replaced the dwarves with CGI abominations. They are pretending like Rachel Zegler is the first of them all when she looks like Lord Farquaad in the film. Somehow Gal Gadot, who's easily one of the top 10 most attractive women on the planet, is some evil, ugly stepmother, which she is not. I don't know how she burst out laughing.
Yeah, none of it works.
Fans remain sharply divided. Some still defend Rachel, praising her confidence and refusing to let the blame rest solely on her shoulders. They argue that if a film is truly well made, no amount of star commentary can sink it. Others believe she disrespected the original in ways that rubbed entire generations the wrong way. They see her as an emblem of modern Hollywood's disregard for old-fashioned family entertainment. The truth probably lies somewhere in between. She may have overstepped, but only in a climate that Disney itself nurtured. Or perhaps her brand of candor was mismatched with a nostalgic property so deeply, embedded in the public's collective heart. Ultimately, the Snow White meltdown underscores a grim reality for big studios chasing the success of live-action remakes. You can't just shell out hundreds of millions, attach a rising star, and rely on brand loyalty to do the rest. If you toy too recklessly with a treasured fairy tale and have a leading actor who's unafraid to rattle fans, you risk landing in the red financially and having your brand identity questioned. Instead of a triumphant box office smash, Disney ended up with a cautionary example of how everything can go horribly wrong. They might recover, of course, because Disney is an entertainment behemoth. But the fiasco has no doubt left them rattled, rethinking how they approach future projects and how they manage star relationships in a hyper-connected world where one viral comment can overshadow years of planning.
EV Magazine wrote on X, when you compare how Rachel Zegler spoke about Snow White to how other actresses who played live-action Disney princesses spoke about their character, really underlines just how poorly she carried herself.
Rachel Zegler's so-called power play may have begun as an earnest desire to bring a fresh angle to a century-old story, but it exploded into a full-scale controversy that threatened an entire franchise. Whether she intentionally orchestrated it or found herself swept up in a corporate tug-of-war, the outcome is the same. Disney is left grappling with a financial black hole, raging fans, and behind-the-scenes legal drama. A once stable formula for easy success, remaking classics turned into a money pit. As for Rachel, her future in Hollywood is now layered with questions about how studios will perceive her. Will they see a bold actress unafraid to speak her truth, or a risk too great for any brand built on tradition? For now, the dust hasn't fully settled. Insiders whisper about further contract showdowns, potential hush money, or even an official statement that might paint the entire experiment as a misguided fluke. But no matter what spin emerges, the damage is done. The original Snow White, revered by generations, stands untouched by time. This new reimagining, battered by controversies and overshadowed by internal conflicts, has become a case study in how not to handle a big-budget adaptation. Disney's aura of invincibility has been shaken, and fans around the world are left questioning who, if anyone, can restore the magic that once defined the House of Mouse. With everything out in the open, walkouts in the marketing department, unscheduled reshoots, contradictory statements from the leading lady, and stony silence from executives who once championed the film, there's no telling how long the repercussions will last. But one thing is certain, Rachel Zegler's $200 million power play has left Disney reeling, and in the process, revealed truths about corporate decision-making, star-driven marketing, and the raw nerve that is public nostalgia. Whether you side with Rachel or Disney, the entire episode proves that even the biggest studios can slip on the mighty banana peel of public sentiment. And once they do, the truth about how these mega productions are really handled spills out for everyone to see. Thanks so much for tuning in. Let me know in the comments whose side you're on in this messy saga. Do you think Rachel overstepped, or is Disney ultimately to blame? I'd love to hear your take, so drop a comment below. And if you enjoyed diving into all the behind-the-scenes drama, please give this video a thumbs up to show your support. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss any new insights into Hollywood's biggest meltdowns. Finally, don't go just yet. There's another video on your screen right now with even more jaw-dropping revelations you won't want to miss. Click on it, and let's keep the conversation rolling. See you there!